So I have finally figured out what is wrong with Keke Palmer. For those who may not know, she is an executive producer on a new show about an Asian girl who has been adopted by a Southern black couple who is now attending an HBCU. This girl's name is Koko, Koko, and the name of the show is Southern Fried Rice, even though this girl is Korean. And before we go on, make sure you subscribe. And if you're already subscribed, hit the notification bell. That way you always get notified when I make a new video. So Coco with 2 Ks is the girl in the upper right-hand corner. It's so much, Lord, it's so much. Anyway, I used to think that Palmer was just ignorant. She hadn't been exposed, but I now realize her conception of black identity is such a mess. It has no complexity and no nuance because it came from white people. So you probably remember her from your childhood as the star of shows like True Jackson VP. This girl grew up playing this white conception of black excellence, playing this sassy figure, basically a mini Sapphire. For example, the premise of True Jackson VP is that she is so stylish and so fashion forward. She was hired to be the VP of the teen section of Mad Style. Yes, this is the real name of the company. And every episode, she had some corporate dilemma, and she always saved the day with her sassiness. And those characters in the background are her best friends. When that's where you start out, it's a good bet you're not headed somewhere positive in terms of cultural identity. And the longer I sit and I look at the trailer and I hear bits and pieces of the first couple of episodes of Southern Fried Rice, I'm not sure any black person came up with this. But I know that Palmer greenlit it because she has been around white producers, showrunners, and executives her whole life. And so this sounded like a good idea to her. And so she became the executive producer on this hottest of hot messes. It honestly sounds like somebody took a bunch of stereotypes and just played Mad Libs with them. But the reason this show even got created is because it's being pushed by people who have been taught the black experience is invalid until someone else has it. And black people aren't people unless they're serving someone of another race. So from what other people, again, not me because I will never ever watch this show, have been saying about the first 2 episodes, this show is going out of its way to put black women in a very negative light while fetishizing and uplifting black men. So first, you have to know Palmer's not the only black woman on this project. It was ostensibly written by Nakia Stevens, who went to an HBCU, Savannah State, and it was directed by Shayla Raquel, who went to FAMU. Now, both of them have talked about the online criticism, and they said they're HBCU alumni and they're not going to create negative or harmful depictions of HBCU life. First of all, that's not necessarily true. Maybe they don't think they're intentionally doing that, but when you decenter the B, the black, historically black college and university, you're already creating a negative depiction. I don't care what you think, and it is harmful. Recall season 1 of A Different World, which starred Marissa Tomei. Yes, Marissa Tomei from My Cousin Vinny and the Oscar-winning film In the Bedroom. Like, what is happening here? Why was she the star of a show about an HBCU? And where were the black people? One of the only black presenting women that season was Jaleesa, who was a non-traditional student, a 26-year-old divorcee who was going back to school. The other leads were very white passing. Denise, nothing further to say there, and Whitley Gilbert. It took black women like Debbie Allen and Susan Fales coming in season 2 to make the show what it eventually became. So people don't have to intend harm. I don't think people who made season 1 intended harm, but was it a terrible and harmful depiction of HBCU life? 100%. And it was just bad television. The question is, why would Nakia Stevens create this travesty? I do not know her at all, so I can only guess. But as I have 2 degrees, including a doctorate in analysis, I think my guess will be pretty spot on. This is not a unique affliction. Do you remember The Game? We see very similar dynamics. To compare, I've got to give you the background on Southern Fried Rice. So Coco was getting ready to go to a fictional HBCU with her cousin when it turns out her cousin can't go because she's pregnant. She's adopted, remember, so her cousin is a black young woman. So she's staying behind. She's gotten knocked up and Coco's going to go off and carry their dreams. So her cousin is playing a big stereotype. She gets to school and there's another big stereotype. Her roommate, who is a larger of body, dark-skinned woman, hates her and is like, why are you here in our space? Because you were raised by black people doesn't make you black. A very valid point. All of the snapping and neck rolling attendant with that kind of depiction included. And then we have the cadre of pretty black girls that exist to be Coco's emotional support mammies. And then a bunch of black men who apparently are going to be vying for her attention because why not? She's Asian. So the game. You remember the game? We've got Melanie, who's with Derwin, their boyfriend, girlfriend. She's a med student who has moved across the country because her man is a third-string football player, just drafted into the NFL. We have Brittany Pitts, white woman here in the middle, who is married to Jason Pitts, has been for almost a decade. And finally, on the other side, we have Tasha Mack, who is a single mother to Malik Wright, her son. So he is one of the biggest stars in the league, and she has managed his career. But she was a teenage mom, another big stereotype, and she talks and acts like all of the stereotypical associations. This show was written and produced by a black woman, Mara Brock Akil, and black women are always getting the worst possible outcomes on this show. So Melanie is cheated on by Derwin. They break up for a while. When they get back together, he has somebody else pregnant. He eventually leaves her on their wedding day to go be present at the birth of his and Janae's baby. Melanie is infertile. It's just trauma, 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 trauma. Tasha Mack can never find and keep a good man. She was involved with a male prostitute. And this is after being abandoned by Malik's father. It's just more drama and trauma, drama and trauma. The only one who is in a steady, stable relationship is Kelly, the white woman. Now, is Jason cheap? Yes. Does Jason have many flaws as a husband? 100%. But he is not doing the things the other men on the cast are doing to their partners. He never cheats on Kelly. He doesn't humiliate Kelly. In fact, he cheats on and humiliates one of the most beautiful black women in the world, Brandy, who plays Chardonnay, his second wife, on here to go back to Kelly. And I discussed that in my video. You can find it on the playlist. Black TV is a humiliation ritual for black women. Outside of him being cheap, Kelly is living happily ever after. And it's not just on the TV show. You remember when the show was airing, it bounced around. First it was on the WB, then the merger of the CW, and eventually BET. And BET was accused of paying the woman who played Kelly Pitts, Brittany Daniel, much more, often as much as twice as much than the other black cast members, particularly the women. BET denied the claim, but then said the salaries were secret, so they never proved their denial. And I don't think people would make a claim like that out of nowhere. And just for clarity, they were saying that she was earning way more than Tia, who was ostensibly the star of the show. And no shade, no tea to Brittany Daniel. She wasn't even always on there. Sometimes her twin, you remember her from Sweet Valley High. Sometimes her twin had to take her role on the TV show because of health issues. So what are you doing that is garnering twice as much as your black co-stars? But people, whether it's post-traumatic slave syndrome or something else, they really do believe the white man's ice is colder, because this is not the first or even the second time this has happened. It was the same thing on Single Ladies, same thing on most of these ensemble shows where there's one white castmate and a bunch of black people and it's supposed to be a multiracial show. The white woman character ends up getting centered. A lot of black women like Palmer will talk endlessly about being the only one and always having to represent the race. They complain, but they're actually proud and happy because your actions speak louder than your words. When you had the opportunity, did you kick down doors and create space for more black women, or did you reify stereotypes and create barriers to black women being stars? I think about Shonda Rhimes. Clearly committed to bringing black women into the fold. She started out with projects like Grey's Anatomy and Princess Diaries 2. I have to see if she's on the new one. But when she got an opportunity to do what she wanted, she centered black women in projects like Scandal. Remember, Carrie was the first black woman to be the lead on a network TV show in 40 years. Shonda made it the #1 show, and she did it again with How to Get Away with Murder. And even when people weren't buying it, like with Still Star-Crossed, she kept putting us forward in places and spaces we had not been seen. This was her first period piece. It didn't work out. I think it should have been given another chance, but she tried again with Bridgerton. which was a massive success. And then Queen Charlotte, and on and on and on. I'm not even including all the side quests, where she's got black women starring. Station 19, Private Practice, what was that? Into the Woods or some shit like that. But anyway, she's clearly committed to doing this. It's her life's work, and she gives us imagery we can be proud of while still having the hard, challenging, nuanced discussions about the depictions therein. Like, a lot of people complain about Scandal because Olivia Pope plays a black woman who is having an affair with a white Republican president. She said, fair enough, I'm going to actually work these commentaries into the show, and I'm going to talk about it all the time. It's Olivia at his beck and call. She says, who am I to you? And am I just Sally Hemings? Referencing President Thomas Jefferson and his assault of his black captive, honestly, an enslaved teenager named Sally Hemings. She constantly discussed what the optics of this relationship were like and the realities that made her life different because she was a black woman, not just perception from the world, but her self-perception in this relationship. Remember her asking Cyrus, are we the help? After her mother said, I'd rather be myself, a terrorist, than be like you, running behind those people, cleaning up their messes. It was complicated. It was nuanced. Everybody remembers this moment with the Papa Pope reveal. How many times have I told you have to be what? What? Twice as good. What? Twice as good. Twice as good to have half as what they have. This is black culture. This is a culturally black moment. Something everybody has experienced with their parents. Them telling you the reality of how the world really works. And this is true black excellence, seeing the obstacles, knowing how difficult and challenging it's going to be, and going out there and getting it done anyway. But a lot of people have black excellence conflated with being the only one in the room. And as I've said, those other people, they get used to being the only one in the room. They will complain about it, but they really flaunt it as a badge of honor because they have come to develop a disdain and a very narrow-minded idea of what blackness is. And a lot of people had issues with Rhimes' work, on Scandal and whatnot, because they have a very stereotypical idea of what blackness is. It's more than catchphrases and cornbread. It's what we see here. It is layered. The only part of the black experience that is universal is discrimination. I love the crossover episodes of Scandal and How to Get Away with Murder because you see the clash between Annalise Keating and Olivia Pope. They have very different conceptions of what blackness is. Annalise accuses Olivia of looking down on her. Olivia says Annalise is just a bully. They both have points. To bridge the gap by realizing the issue is the system, but you have to want to fight the system. You have to want to see an issue with the system in order to come to that conclusion. Some people, I'm not going to call any names, Palmer, they have been well fed by the system. Okay, they have no issues with the system and they want things to keep on rolling on the exact way they always have, but they want to make sure that they get theirs. When people rightfully called out this melange of bad stereotypes, she said, as a professional tap dancer and court jester for most of my life, I'm not complaining. I can tell you that it's imperative people of color have jobs outside of just being the talent or the player on the team. It's my mission with Key TV to help fund and support the creators of color behind the scenes, giving them a chance to tell their own story. First of all, if this is somebody's story, I will eat my phone. Like, who in this room, this is their story? But you actually refers to herself, professional tap dancer and court jester. I want to call her something, but I'm not going to do it. I'm trying to grow this year. But she has just volunteered. She's a you-know-what for pay. And she just wants to make sure she's getting that executive producer money. And the interesting thing is, when people make these kinds of excuses, normally they say, oh, I had to dance to the beat of somebody else's drum. I had to perform. I had to be what they wanted. And now I'm behind the camera. Now I'm in charge. Now I'm the producer. And what I say goes. Nope. She says, now I'm at the top of the heap and I'm going to push out what the people want to see because it's going to make me money. All skin folk ain't kinfolk. Shout out to you, Zora Neale. You're problematic too, but that quote does eat. I've been telling y'all for a long time, some people never wanted freedom, okay? They want to reify a hierarchy as long as they can be sure they're at the top of the hierarchy. And that's why women like this will promote a scarcity mentality. I'll give you an example. So one of the stars of Southern Fried Rice is Cordell Beckham. You may remember him from season 6 of Love Island. He and Serena won the show. Now, why would you be taking a man who's famous for winning a reality show on dating alongside a dark-skinned black woman when you're always complaining these relationships don't get shine and nobody supports black love? Why would you take him and make him a potential love interest for an Asian girl at an HBCU, in your storyline? Why would you be doing that if you're really so for the people? And remember, like I said, this is not Palmer alone. She's the executive producer, but you have two black women who attended HBCUs, at least one of whom is, unambiguous in coloring and features. So why would you be promoting this kind of imagery? Because despite what you may say verbally, you've internalized this idea that you're not enough. So you don't think you're worthy of love. You're never going to portray other black women as getting and receiving healthy love because you have self-hatred issues. Like, I noted this time out of mind. I've been telling you all for years, watch out for women who write either books or TV shows or any kind of media that centers women who look nothing like them. Zane would be a great example. Y'all remember the Zane books? Every single story, the girl, oh, I mix with Native American. Oh, I have light eyes and light skin. My hair is naturally straight, or it's very curly. It falls down to my waist. I look hyper ambiguous. Remember when Zayn was anonymous and then people found out who Zayn actually was, and she was a short, completely unambiguous, larger of body black woman. And I said, there's something wrong with her. And I stopped reading her stuff immediately, though I was in high school. Same thing with Sister Soldier. I remember I was 10, nobody judged me, when I read Coldest Winter Ever. And I said, she's a little off because she actually features herself in her book. The protagonist is Winter Santiago, who apparently looks so ambiguous. She is constantly mistaken as Latina or Cuban in her particular area. But Winter actually runs across Sister Soldier in the book, and Winter is talking about how unattractive Sister Soldier is. Oh, her hair is cute, but she's larger and she's dark and her voice is rough and she's not that pretty. And I'm like, what the hell? What the hell kind of low self-esteem bullshit is this? Ma'am, you need help. And then in the later sequels and follow-ups to Coldest Winter Ever, like A Deeper Love and, Midnight Story, he is married in one of those books to an Asian girl. And when people rightfully called her out for that, she's like, oh, black women need to learn that they're competing in a global marketplace and they're not going to get all the black men to themselves and they've got to become better. You hate yourself. Please go deal with that. That mental affliction honestly reminds me of the black women who hang around Kardashians. You have what they want. They're reheating your nachos, but you act like you need their approval, their stamp of validation in order for your experience to be valid. Seek therapy. Because that's all this is. These women are acting like nobody's going to be interested in the HBCU experience unless somebody who is not H or B is in it. And it's like, no, what is going on here? Some of it is low self-esteem. Some of it is believing we have to peddle our experience to every single person out there. And a lot of it is believing that it's not enough to make something for ourselves. Because this whole show is like, the black experience through someone else's lens. Why isn't enough to just have your experience and whoever enjoys it, enjoys it? Like, we never think our experiences are universal enough. They'll make a show about a rich white guy, they'll make your American Psychos, Fight Club, Catcher in the Rye, all that stuff. And it's supposed to be universal. You're supposed to somehow adapt. You're supposed to somehow relate. But you're scared to make shows and things like that specific to your experience because what if everybody doesn't like them? What if everybody doesn't understand them? So instead, you distill your complex, nuanced experience down to a handful of stereotypes you think people understand about Black life. And now you've thrown it into a blender with what's hot and popping right now. You're like, oh, what's popular? Oh, I know, K-pop, Korean culture. Okay, I'll put a Korean in here and then people will want to watch. Like, no, you've just made a big mess. Quite rightfully, Black people are offended and alienated. Everyone else is confused and nobody is going to watch this unless it's to pan it. Like, why? Why have you done this unclean thing? So, in conclusion, thoughts most definitely become things. Whatever you feed your mind is what is going to come back out. So, please do not consume any of this foolishness, okay? I don't care if a black woman did write it or is engaged with it, it's not good for you. And a lot of us need to be on the therapist couch, not creating anything. Because a whole team full of black people actually greenlit this and said, this is the one right here, that this is going to be an absolute breakout hit. We laugh at the white people all the time. Like, nobody on the team said this is not a great idea or this is tone deaf, but a whole team full of black people, young ones at that. So not some black people who were born in the 1930s, some black people who were born in the 80s said, this is it. This is it right here. A truly terrifying thought. If you want to know how not to make these mistakes in your own life, you can follow me here or on Patreon, Cecilia Regina. And if you want to reach out to me personally, you can write me at conquerorperish2020@gmail.com for a one-on-one. Like, comment, and subscribe for more. And don't forget to hit that notification button if you do subscribe. And let me know your thoughts on this whole thing below. Because every time somebody says something else, I'm like, yeah. A couple of tweets that really had it. No Asian American showrunner would ever make a show featuring a black adoptee and an Asian American family. You should be deeply embarrassed. Facts. Trinadrill, great name, said, an Asian woman in bamboo hoop earrings attending an HBCU. I'm not hungry. Because what the hell kind of reheated, old ass, just fashion and stereotypes is this? You know, she's got a nameplate necklace on. She's got bamboo earrings. Baby, is it 2025 or did I blink and this is a period piece set in the 1980s? What is this? Which is not to say that those things are not evergreen fashion-wise, but why are they acting like homegirls on the cutting edge of fashion with some stuff she just discovered? Like, oh my, she's so intensely black because she has these things that literally made their way into the hands of white culture vultures back in the 2000s. Please. So please give me your thoughts because I know they're going to be hilarious. And I'll see y'all next time.